battery-powered ERT modules, such as the electric and gas meters once used. This was mentioned in the National Grid talk earlier this week. Traditionally, this ERT only broadcasts its usage information when prompted by a wake-up tone generated by a passing meter reader truck. This would be a helpful solution for all humans, electrically sensitive or not. Both of these solutions could be coupled with an interim forwarder mounted to a nearby utility pole, thus preventing overexposure of the sensitive consumer. In closing, I do ask the Massachusetts governing authorities to insist that safety and health concerns be given proper prominence in the review process, and that the accumulated complaints previously lodged against smart meter deployment be reviewed again. I, other engineers, building biologists, health professionals, and concerned citizens do stand ready to engage with the utilities to cooperatively devise an optimal opt-out solution here in Massachusetts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. Next on my list, we have a Ms. Doe Kelly. Is Ms. Kelly available? If you could raise your hand. I do not see Ms. Kelly. So I'm going to move down and we'll come back to her afterwards. Do we have a Dorothy Baker? Ms. Baker, are you available? Ms. Baker, if you can use your raise hand function. Okay, I don't hear anything, so I'm going to just keep going down my list. Helen Walker.
Oh, hang on just a sec. I think Ms. Baker was moved into the.
Okay, I see her.
I'd like to give my time to somebody else. I wasn't planning to speak.
Okay, that's fine. We can move on. Is there Joanne Halpin? Oh. I see some hands raised. Sarah, can you?
I do not see Ms. Halpin in the list unless she's
okay.
Name.
Okay, so I'm just going to keep moving on. Kirstin Beatty.
All right, I'm here. I'll just open up the PowerPoint.
Shirley or Scott, could you make sure that she's in as a panelist so she can use the share screen function?
Yeah, how do I open it up? Right.
So Scott, are you able to?
She is now a panelist.
Okay, can you see the screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I'll begin the slideshow then. Okay, I'm speaking today about the costs. My name is Kirstin Beatty. I'm director of Last Tree Laws, which I guess is kind of like the Lorax. I am sensitive to electricity, so I have tried to write a few bills in the past. At the moment, there is a bill that relates to smart meters, as 1988, which allows a no-cost opt-out and replacement by analog. I prefer that to nothing, but I hope for more. The smart grid is a terrible investment. It's harmful. So a few of the costs include cyber security, potential legal action, and deployment and upkeep. So for the legal actions, there are a ton. There are a ton of options: health, property rights, and I believe the EMF medical conference in 2021 will probably help ensure a greater number of people are aware and become diagnosed, potentially increasing the options for claims. In terms of cyber attacks, Eversource acknowledges its insurance is insufficient. More than half of utilities report at least one shutdown or operational data loss per year. Those losses include environmental, infrastructure, and financial. The other thing to keep in mind is that attacks can also come from nation states. Ukraine was able to battle off an attack in a few hours. The U.S. could take months to a year if they had a significant attack. We have about half a chance of utilities having an attack, and they are increasing. So the other thing to keep in mind is that the smart grid, all the data requires a warrant, which means that there's a lot of data. The problem is that even though it's supposed to be private, it's hard to control that. There's a lot of options or avenues for human error or malicious intent. Eversource alone has 8,000 employees. Then the other problem is power quality. So I spoke with Bill Bathgate on the phone, and he helped me. He explained that poor power quality is generated by all smart meters and the grid from AC to DC conversion, as opposed to having a smooth 60 hertz sine wave. Harmonics and transients are generated. So in the picture on the top, it's a picture of a normal sine wave, and on the bottom, it's a picture of how it looks when you have a solar array. So if you have a solar array on the grid, and it could be on the grid because of a large solar installation, or it could be on the grid because it's attached to your home, then there are enormous power quality problems. However, even if you have a smart meter, you also have power quality problems too. So he told me that people who get a solar array on their house usually have to pay about $8,000 in order to correct the problem. If they don't, then their major appliances will die in a year. And the other thing is that worldwide, the cost of poor power quality is in the billions. So it's a huge cost because it causes equipment to turn off, computer errors, equipment to have shorter lifetimes, and it also causes the loss to energy. Then the other thing is health costs. we have to look at harm to health from four areas. It's not just from the wireless or poor power quality. It's also from the fields of electricity, the sensors. So, for example, the U.S. chronic pain burden is huge, and that probably ties into other impacts. So it isn't just that we're paying for the health care, it's also that it has impacts on our whole lives. The other thing is there could be a potential class action. So when you look at our circuit, which is the first circuit, they have acknowledged electromagnetic sensitivity. They've admitted that the Telecommunications Act of 1996 and the FCC cannot bar claims for that. And I know people who are having trouble. They're homeless. They can't be close to a meter. They can't go to talk to people. They can't work because they've become ill. So because of that, opt-out payments are hard to excuse. I don't think the pricing schemes or the opt-out costs ought to be on the backs of the poor people or the disabled. Now, I know there are people who argue that there's no evidence. I'd argue otherwise. I'd argue there's all these cases at the moment, and then there's also the possibility that qualified immunity could also be an issue. I believe that the DPU and utilities have chosen to rely on people who I think do not represent the best of expertise, and that has to be changed. Then in the end, to close, the grid is quite expensive. I don't think it offers all the benefits that we have been told. So for example, there's this idea, it's green. In California, I have an image here where you can see for all of their consumers, there were no energy savings. And then there are other studies to back that up. Then there's the energy cost of the grid. It's huge. I mean, on every home, you're collecting all this data. Then on top of that data, you're using energy to operate the grid. So the other supposed benefit of the grid is it's supposed to help prevent blackouts. However, if you're increasing energy, if you're collecting more data, and if consumers are not using practices to reduce their energy, then it's just increasing the load. And then there's an excellent series of letters by Katie Singer, where she talks about the cost of IT and even electrical vehicles. So she had an instance where she explained that if France converted to all electrical vehicles, then France's energy use would be doubled. So there are many environmental harms to using IT and to using electrical vehicles. And the reason that we're not aware is because there's no U.S. agency that's tracking all of the emissions from cradle to grave. So I think when you look at all the money put into the grid, you have to ask if we're doing the wrong thing. We already spent over $44 million for the smart pilot in Worcester, just 15,000 meters, and I have to ask, is the upkeep also going to cost? And then I question whether the meters are actually just being put forward because they allow pricing schemes. If you have a solar array and you earn extra energy, it's possible that you earn less than you would earn if you had an analog. There are also problems that are associated with the billing. So there's actually been class actions brought out because they haven't, because the meters are not accurate. So I guess that's pretty much it. That's the closing. Oh, there's the last case is there is a case here where the Third Circuit in Pennsylvania refused to acknowledge the right to protect health. I would argue that that decision is wrong. And the reasons are directly there. It's because grid modernization is not a benefit. It's harmful to people, and the arguments I don't believe that were made, I don't believe they're correct. So alternatives, I would suggest that we revert to analogs, that we have power quality practices, that we recover the cost, and then also that we try to take utilities and change them so that their profit model is not based off of using more energy. And if we do actually use smart meters, then I would suggest that we pay for people to be shielded, that we hardwire all the meters, that we ensure privacy, and just enact all the possible protections that we can in order to ensure health, privacy, and all else. All right, I guess that's it.
Tina, you're on mute.
Ms. Beatty, will you make sure you submit your slide presentation to the department?
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have Jean Lemieux. Is Mr. Lemieux, you're on mute?
Am I unmuted now?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I am the president of the Massachusetts Association for the Chemically Injured, and I am providing information today on behalf of the members of our organization, which is a volunteer nonprofit statewide support, education, and referral organization for people with multiple chemical sensitivity. I deal with real life experience as a chemically sensitive individual myself, and in my role in talking with other members and other persons who contact our organization. I provided written comments from our organization on DPU 2069, which I guess you said is in the record, specific on question 8, which is what our listening session is about. Our organization is opposed to the establishment of any policy that the DPU is proposing that would require all new service meters to be capable of providing AM, advanced meter functionality, the AMI, when installed to replace an existing meter that reaches the end of its useful life or otherwise needs to be replaced, which was what question number 8 was dealing with. An extensive amount of public comment was given responding to the dockets under the Grid Modernization of 1276 from 6 years ago. And did I understand you correctly to say that this Department of Public Utilities, the people that I see up here on today's panel for the people, have read the documents in 1276?
We are familiar with that order, yes.
Okay, because I was going to submit today, which I did not do on 2069, my reply comments on 1276. Is that appropriate?
That is in the docket for 1276. If that's where you've submitted them, they are there.
Okay, have the members been availed themselves to that? Because I do feel very strongly about what I get put there.
If you may resubmit them in this docket if you'd like.
Thank you. The issue of cost and the tariff that's been raised by some other speakers was part of the docket 1383, of which I had attended and spoke about and submitted some oral comment on. And I still find that is questionable and unresolved, the charging of these tariffs. For it, I find it to be discriminatory against those who need to protect their health and are entitled to protections under the ADA. That has not been addressed up to this point. And the opt-out tariff, which you mentioned under 1276B, the order, also raises tariffs, and again the issue of discrimination to a segment of the population most in need of non-radiating utility meters has not been addressed. So here we have two, and I have yet to see any feedback from the Department of Public Utilities concerning this issue. Many people who suffer from multiple chemical sensitivities are concomitantly vulnerable to the effects of EMFs and radio frequency radiation. The combination of these sensitivities is quite disabling and puts their ability to work or live in their residences at greater risk. A population survey of hypersensitivity to electromagnetic fields in California found chemical sensitivity to be an important risk factor for hypersensitivity to EMFs. We believe the Department of Public Utilities' inclusion of replacement of electric meters and AMI meter ignores the growing body of scientific, technical, and bioeffects data regarding the possible consequences of a massive rollout of wireless smart meter exposure on the health of the general public, and especially the potential health effects from RF exposure for vulnerable segments of the population, including those living with multiple chemical sensitivity and electromagnetic hypersensitivity. An increasing number of our members have spoken